Now, if you are dealing with a covert narcissist or any kind of narcissist, whether they're overt or grandiose or malignant or covert, is what we're going to be talking about today, or a combination of any of the kinds of narcissists, then you're dealing with a hellish personality, a heinous personality. But there are some things about covert narcissists that can make them even more insidious than the other types of narcissists. And for those of you who have watched my other videos, which you will want to check out on covert narcissism in relationships and the covert passive aggressive narcissist, and I'll drop links to those below, you know that I have a personal experience with dealing with covert narcissists. Not as husbands, but as people who were close to me, who I became the target of these heinous creatures. So, this is the kind of narcissist that I personally disdain the most. So, in some ways, this is like my PSA, my public service announcement to warn you against these personality type or this personality type and what to look for in this personality type. So, one of the things that you should know about covert narcissists is that they are 100% narcissists. So, they have what Dr. Craig Malkin calls the triple E, which is that they exploit, they feel entitled, and they lack empathy. So, they still are all 100% narcissist, like all narcissists are. And the other little kind of dangerous thing about covert narcissists is that they can sometimes be grandiose narcissists that act covert, which is kind of confusing too. You know, sometimes these different types of narcissists actually vacillate back and forth between the the various signs of the types of narcissists they are. But what I'm going to be talking about today is actually more of your pure covert narcissist, which is the kind that I've actually had to deal with, and why I think that they're so dangerous. Because, you know, if I could be fooled, then anybody can be fooled. And I really just had to literally work these people out of my life in the last year. So, and it was not easy. And they still try to pop back up and pop back in because that's what narcissists do. They never really let go, they never really um, move on completely. You know, sometimes it can be years before they pop back up again, but that you can kind of minimize it and protect yourself in a lot of ways. And that's why I'm doing this video, because I want you to know the signs of abuse. Okay. So the thing about covert narcissists is that they don't look on the surface like regular narcissists. Regular narcissists, what I call the garden variety narcissist, is more of your grandiose varietal, the kind that goes around telling everybody how great they are all the time. Covert narcissists don't do that. And that's one of the things that I think is so dangerous about them, is that on the surface they appear very nice. They appear like good people. Lots of people love them. They can be politicians, they can be clergy, they can be lawyers, doctors. They're often in positions of respect because, of course, they're narcissists. They feed on that respect. Remember that the narcissist actually has no inner sense of internal value. They get all of their sense of value from the external. They need endless amounts of what we call supply, which is anything that feeds their ego, anything that feeds their external value or their feeling of external value. So, supply can be in the form of money, compliments, prestige, anything that they think is going to give them more value. So here's the problem with a covert narcissist, and one of the things that is so dangerous about them is you're not going to hear them say, I'm the greatest, look at my ratings, look how fantastic I am, I'm so smart, I'm the number one this, I'm the number one that, you know, without anything to back it up. They just go around saying all of those things because they feed on that. They need to have it. Okay. So what a covert narcissist is more likely to do is put themselves in positions where they're going to get all of that, but they're not actually going to have to say it overtly. And so we're told that narcissists are brash, braggadocious, loud, assertive. Well, the thing is that covert narcissists don't come in that format. They're usually much nicer. They start off by, giving you lots of things. That their version of love bombing is often being the perfect person for you in, they can put you in positions that you want to be in, or give you speaking engagements that you think that you want, or introduce you to the person that you want to be introduced to, or they're the perfect cook or the perfect mother, or whatever it is that you want. This person just seems so nice and so wonderful. And yes, malignant narcissists can do that too, but the difference with uh, covert narcissists is that they don't come off that way, where they're loud and braggadocious and flashy. They come off as really nice, sometimes even quiet, sometimes passive, sometimes demure. So that's one of the things that I think is super dangerous about covert narcissists. One of the other things that I think is really dangerous about covert narcissists is that they come off looking very successful often on the surface. And, grandiose and malignant narcissists can do this too, but grandiose narcissists come off as super ambitious, super successful, whereas the covert narcissist is often, they make it look like they've had that sort of success, but if you look just beneath the surface, they haven't actually gotten that success. And so they have a lot of bitterness and resentment about the fact that, everybody else has more success than they do. And, that their failures are other people's faults because, you know, something happened with their business, or this person sabotaged them in some way, or maybe they were just getting going and they had to close their business, or they had to move, or they something happened, and so they have all of these sort of failed ambitions and feeling of emptiness, and they often feel have a tremendous sense of depression and emptiness, and sometimes they'll even tell you that they have bouts of depression, but they don't tell you it's because of their failures in business. They'll tell you it's just that they have these afflictions, because one of the other things about covert narcissists is they often are very good at playing the victim. All narcissists do that, but the way covert narcissists do it is that they're kind of sad, and people aren't treating them well, and they just didn't get a good lot in life, and um, the world is unfair to them, and so they end up feeling depressed and empty, and they often have sicknesses, um, so that they can get sympathy from people around them, garner lots of pity from people. Oh, so and so's always getting a bad deal. There's a lot of payoff sometimes for being a victim, and a covert narcissist thrives on that payoff from being the victim. So the other thing about covert narcissists that I think is super dangerous is that they're super passive aggressive. And this is the one thing that really was like very confusing for me and the two passive aggressive narcissists that I had to deal with, the covert ones, is that they would do these little things that on the surface would seem so nice. Oh, here, I did this for you, and but while they're doing this thing for you, they're crossing a boundary, or they don't do something that they say they're going to do, and then when you ask them about it, it's, oh, I forgot, or oh, I misunderstood you, or oh, we had a conversation about that, remember, and we decided to do this. And it's absolutely not something that we decided to do, but it's them trying to make an excuse for behavior that they know has been hurtful to you. And so they try to get you to say that, basically you went along with that. And when you try, and it's little things, it's that little drip, drip, drip on your forehead, little things. In Debbie Mirza's book, The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, she gives an example of a husband who would go into Starbucks to get coffee, and the wife would stay in the car, and the husband would say, what do you want, anything? And she'd say, yeah, I'll have, a vanilla latte or whatever. And he'd get back in the car and start to drive away. And she'd say, what happened to my latte? And he'd say, oh, I forgot to get it for you. But then he wouldn't go back into the place to get it. So, and it was like a little thing that if you tell somebody, oh, I didn't get the latte that I wanted, then you come off sounding petty. And you start to think, well, do I blow up a whole marriage over that? I mean, that seems so ridiculous. But what they're really trying to do is send you this message that they think so little of you, or that you're not worthy in some way, because that's how narcissists get supply. They get supply by building themselves up and cutting you down. And so they do these little tiny things that in the surface, if you tell somebody about it, it just doesn't seem like that big of a deal. They're very, very passive aggressive, and it can leave you feeling confused and after a while abused and actually traumatized because of the way they act. And if this is sounding really familiar to you, give me a totally in the comments. Is that they're 100% narcissists, but they are really, really good at being manipulative, very good at hiding their manipulation, very good at disguising it as something else, as disguising it as that, I just, did this little thing for you. And you know that the hair on the back of your neck is standing up, like, that's not something nice. One of the things that I've heard during this, I'm taping this while we're still in this global pandemic, is, that the covert narcissist in people's lives are leaving food by the door. And that that's like a message of, I know where you live, or I still have control over you, or I know what you want. But the rest of the world is like, oh, the person left you a care package. How is that bad? Why is that? Well, we all know that the person is so nice. We all know that the person is such a good person. So what's your problem? And so while they're lining up their flying monkeys and they're telling everybody, how wonderful they are, or how wronged they've been by you, because, oftentimes you actually look like the stronger person, because they've put themselves in this light of being the nice, caring, kind person. So you obviously must be the one that is wronging them in some way. And you almost feel paralyzed to, like, how do you even um, right that wrong of what people are thinking about you? And the way I've just come to deal with it is, number one, I have major boundaries. I do not look at what these other people are doing. I don't look at their social media. I've blocked them on my social media so that they can't see what I'm doing and, continue to, have access to what I'm doing. I don't want them to think that I'm interested in what they're doing at all, because I'm not. I just want to look forward, not back. I don't want their energy in my space. I don't want to even be thinking about them. When I go to think, when one of them pops into my mind, I pivot immediately, because the way I look at it is, if I'm thinking about them, then I am not in creation mode. I'm not helping people. I'm not doing things like making these videos and helping you guys so that you can look forward also and concentrate on your now and the rest of your life and creating an incredible future. And so I just learned how to pivot and create major boundaries, because I don't want these people in my space, and you shouldn't have them in there either. So if you have to continue to co-parent with them, or you have to continue to live with them in some way, then, figure out a way to protect yourself so that when they do these things, you're no longer going to be sucked into it, and certainly do not let them see you be upset by their behavior, because then they know that they have you. Then they know that they still have this little modicum of control over you. So here comes more, here comes more. So, the less you can interact, the more you can show that you aren't interested, and you direct your energies elsewhere, then that vibrational energy of connection that you still have with that person will eventually peter off and hopefully eventually die. So if you are dealing with a covert passive aggressive narcissist in your life, they can be the most dangerous kind of narcissist, because they are the most sneaky, the most insidious, the most stealth, and in some ways the most toxic, because of how good they are about hiding their narcissism and being under the radar. And so if that is you, I'm sending you blessings. I'm sending you light. From one survivor, thriver, to another, you can do this. Just follow the light. Get them the hell out of your life.
So covert narcissists are so different than the grandiose narcissist. And covert can be malignant as well, by the way. But covert narcissists tend to be under the radar. To the rest of the world, they look amazing. They look perfect. They're wonderful. They're kind. They're generous. They're so easy to get along with. They only show their ugly, horrible, heinous face to their victims. And so here you are with somebody who, when you first meet them, is generous and kind and says all the right things, and everybody loves them. And oftentimes they're in positions of, where people love them, like clergy or doctors or psychologists, people who seem to be very caring, who seem to be just the most amazing people that you could have ever met. And so they come on with love bombing, just like all narcissists do. And if you want to know more about love bombing, check out my video on love bombing. But basically, it's that time where they are grooming you to become their target. They're testing you out to see if you're the right one for them, to see if you're going to be good. And so they present themselves to you as wonderful. And if it's a romantic situation, they're the perfect spouse. If it's a business situation, they're the perfect business partner. So they get themselves ensconced into the relationship with you. And then once they're firmly in place, then they start with devaluing, and they start saying little things. So the first way that covert narcissists attack their victims is through passive aggression. And what that is they seem like they're being very nice, but then they're also saying something that's not so nice. So they'll say something like, "Oh, you are doing so well with your weight loss. I mean, you still have a ways to go, but you're not looking as big as you normally do." Something like that. So it's sort of like a compliment, but also a devalue. It's also a put down. So you'll see these little kinds of things, like, "Oh, I see that you took care of the bank statements or balancing the checkbook or whatever it is. I just went ahead and fixed this mistake that you had. But good for you for doing that. That's really great. But, I just went ahead and fixed your mistake. Little things like that are just kind of like this dig that are so like passive aggressive that you're not really sure what's going on. Another way that they can be passive aggressive is to say that they're going to do something and then not do it. And now you're left in this position of trying to go after them and go, hey, how come you didn't do the thing that you said that you were going to do? And they say, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. And then they never do it. And it's sort of like almost like a little rebellion against you, like, I'm not going to do what you want me to do kind of a thing. So passive aggression is something you see a lot in covert narcissists because it's something that they can kind of do under the radar and people don't necessarily see it. It's not overt. It's not in your face. It also gives them the ability of plausible deniability where they can kind of go, well, I wasn't saying anything bad. I was complimenting them. What are you talking about? And so they don't seem like they're the bad ones. They're so excellent at passive aggression and it's just eats away at you. It's like little by little, you just get like little chunks taken out of you until you're just kind of like nothing left of you, or they just like suck a little blood at a time, or death by 1,000 cuts. I've heard all of those expressions before, and because the two narcissists that I had to deal with were both coverts, I understand it completely, and it is no fun to deal with that. So passive aggression is the first one. And by the way, if you want to know more about the covert passive aggressive narcissist, I do have a video on that, but I also highly recommend the book by Debbie Mirza called The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, and we'll drop a link to that below as well. If you've ever dealt with these energy vampires and you know exactly what I'm talking about, give me a vampires in the comments below. So the second thing that covert narcissists use to attack their victims is, their good old-fashioned favorites, gaslighting. All narcissists love gaslighting. And gaslighting is basically a way to try to make you think that you're crazy. And so they say things like, oh, we talked about that, when you know you didn't talk about that. Or you said you were going to do that and you know that you didn't. Or even if you see something that's evidence right in front of your face, like a text message that looks like they're being inappropriate with somebody else, they say, oh, you're just reading things into it, you're just imagining stuff, and I'm just friends with this person, or I work with this person, and why do you always have to be that way? So, gaslighting is a way to get control over their victims and start making victims almost question their own reality, question their own thinking, question their own self in a lot of ways. I mean, you just get to this point where you don't even know what's real anymore because they're just constantly gaslighting you into making you think that you're the one that's crazy. Another way that covert narcissists attack their victims is by isolating you. So making you put all your attention and focus on them, being jealous if you are talking to anybody else, making sure that everything that you do is about them. And even if you're trying to tell them something about you or how you're feeling, they'll interrupt you. They'll start saying how they're the victim, that, whatever it is that you had a problem with it ends up getting shoved aside because they have to talk about their problem and what it is. And I can't believe you're attacking me. And especially because I'm depressed or I'm sick or this is all going on. And you know that this is going on with me. And so it's all, shoved aside and isolating you from your friends and your family. And, why you have to be talking to this person at this time, and this should be our time together, and who's calling you at this hour, and why are you leaving to go talk to somebody else or be with someone else, and so you just end up with, you know, no family or friends because you've got to put 100% into this person. Another thing that covert narcissists do is stonewall. So they'll just not get back to you. They'll just basically kind of like ghost you and stop talking to you. And if you want to know more about ghosting, you should check out my video on ghosting. But, you know, they just go dark. It's sort of a form of passive aggression in a way, actually, where they just, you're trying to reach them and they don't respond to you. And then when you finally do get a hold of them, they're like, oh, I was busy, I was working, I was this, I was that. And you know that they could have at least sent you a text back to say, hey, I'm busy, I'll talk to you later, or something like that. But they want you to be worried. They love creating drama. They love creating like where you're scared about something, where you're intimidated. So that's definitely another way that covert narcissists attack their victims. But another of their main little ways is triangulation. So this is not a direct attack on you. So coverts kind of tend to hang back. They don't want to do the direct attack thing. They're sneakier. They kind of go around. They figure out ways to sort of attack you in very subtle ways. It's so much worse in some ways than somebody who comes right at you. So one of the things that they do is they triangulate. So they get all of their flying monkeys all lined up and believing that there's something wrong with you. And they do it and they couch it in ways like, oh, I'm just so concerned about how much she's drinking. You know, something like that. Like they care so much and I can't believe that they're doing that. Or, oh, it makes me so sad that she's, you know, talking to these other people or she's doing these things to me, so that they become like the victim, like that the other person is doing things to this person. And so that's another thing that they do. And they get all of their flying monkeys lined up to thinking that you are bad in some way. And the best flying monkeys, the ones that they love the most, are the ones that they think you want to have a relationship with, or you want to, you know, them to respect you or love you or like you or whatever. And so those are the ones, especially if they can spot weakness. They're very, very good at manipulating. They are master manipulators. So they'll look for people who are going to be open to having this conversation with them and open to maybe hearing what they have to say. I know one of the covert narcissists that I had to deal with actually got my own cousin to come and talk to me about what a victim this other person was. And I just couldn't believe that this was actually happening. But that's how good they are. And I was since able to get my cousin to understand what was really going on. And, you know, that's not happening anymore. But that's something that covert narcissists do, is triangulate and line up their flying monkeys. And it is certainly something that they do during the discard phase of the relationship. And when you are ending a relationship and you're having to figure out how to end it, whether it's negotiating a divorce, negotiating a business settlement, any kind of negotiation, this is the kind of thing that they are going to be doing. As covert narcissists, they're going to attack you even more. It's everything that they were doing during the relationship will be magnified and on steroids over and over and over again. All right, so nice, so kind, so wonderful. Everybody thinks that they are wonderful. They come, they befriend you. They are your best friend. Everybody thinks that they are wonderful. They ingratiate themselves within everyone. But, you know, they're kind of like in everyone's business. They sort of find themselves everywhere they need to be. That's sort of how they are. They just sort of really in touch with everything that's going on, especially if it's a company. They see where the best synergies are. They see where they can collapse. And they are really, really great for that idealization phase. You know, they look for those opportunities to attach themselves to the right people. They're excellent opportunists, and they're kind of like meerkats. They're always looking around for that best opportunity and where they can attach themselves to that best person to make themselves look the best. Where can they look the most significant and be seen and be valued the most, right? And they want to be in that spot, that spotlight. If they attach themselves to you, are that person at that moment. So whether it's a business partnership or if you're at work or whatever it is, it's because they have decided that you're the one that should be attached to in that moment. And so if that's the case, then you're going to be a good one for them. But if all of that aligns, and that's fantastic at the beginning, once they attach themselves to you, so that's number one, then you start to find, well, number two, they end up not following through on the things that they're supposed to be doing, say that they're going to do things, they end up not doing them. So number two is that they're very, very passive aggressive, assign themselves or you assign them certain things to do. Where is it? You are kind of confused by it because they seem like they're going to be an amazing partner or somebody to be working with, and it's not happening. And they always have some sort of excuse for it, or they just don't respond to you at all. But they've always got some sort of family issue, some sort of family emergency, some sort of something going on, and you start to feel during this time that underlying sort of competition coming on. Now you're starting to feel that, and you're starting to feel that they're sort of triangulating, right? So number three is that's when you're starting to feel that sort of competition going on. That's where you're starting to feel where they treat you a little bit like they are superior to you and you are inferior. Little digs, little subtle devaluing, where they kind of forget things about you on purpose, things that that they knew about you. They kind of put themselves in superior positions. If there's an opportunity, all of a sudden they left you off of it. Inadvertently. They might have inadvertently left you off of emails for meetings, for information about clients. All of a sudden things are starting to happen. And when you question them about it, they are, what are you talking about? They don't own up to it because, everybody still thinks that they're so wonderful, so nice. And they even say things to you like how much they think of you. It's confusing because the way they're acting is different than the way they conduct themselves. And so you're starting to feel confused about this underlying thing that's happening, the passive aggressive behavior, this underlying competition, things that they're forgetting, and the way they still seem like they're your friend, or they still seem like they're supposed to be sort of on your side. Then the next thing is they start setting themselves up as sort of they're friends with all sorts of other people, and that they have stronger sort of relationships with other people. They start setting themselves up as they are the go-to person. They are the go-to person within the relationship with you, so that you are kind of the secondary person in the relationship. And because they want people to sort of see that you are now kind of wronging them in some way, that you are now sort of the bad person. They want to sort of set themselves up as kind of the victim of you if anything ever happens. They want to make sure that they've kind of got these third parties aligned with them. And they want to make sure that you know that these third parties are aligned, so they'll kind of drop it in that how close they are to this person or that person, especially if this person or that person is superior to you, somebody that you look up to, somebody that is perceived to be higher up on the food chain in some way, more famous, more influence, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be even within the same company, but they want to make sure that whoever this person is, it's whether it's the illusion of influence or whatever it is, that that they know, or whatever it is, that there's this perceived feeling that if there was ever a fracture between you and them, that they're going to be absorbed into the higher level of society as they see it, and you're going to be left out in the cold. That's what they kind of want to make sure that you feel. That's the next one. The next one is you start to see some maybe even potential situations where they start treating you almost as a subordinate. Now they're starting to give you tasks to do where you are kind of becoming, where you're doing things for them. They might even say things to you in public or in front of others that make people think that you're their subordinate in some way. They might put something out on social media or something that kind of makes people believe this, even if it's not true, or they treat you like this in some way. If this is resonating with you in any way, I'd love to know that you've seen it, or put totally in the comments, or put I've seen it in the comments, or something that you guys have seen so far. Because I know for me, it was very similar to this. And I know for me, I even started to see some unethical behavior at this point. I was taken aback. And if you actually say something to them at this point about behavior that is, potentially unethical or not above board, or you try to call them out on whatever it is that they're doing, they turn it around like it is such a huge, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would question me. Then they become the victim. They reverse it so that they become the victim, and you are now comforting them. The next thing is that they will pretend like they didn't know that you were trying to either take time off, or that you were trying to not be scheduled on a certain day or do something like that. They'll start to try to sabotage you. So they might even tell clients or people like that, oh, they don't know where you are, make it seem like you just didn't show up, or make you come in on those days, make you work on those days, that sort of thing. The next thing is that if something good happens with you, and this is the last one, number 7, is that they will absolutely not be happy for you whatsoever. I mean, they'll be like, oh, great for you. Congratulations. I mean, they'll try to muster it, if they're trying to still hide it, but you'll be able to start to tell that they're not actually happy for you. And by the way, this is still, all if they're still with you, still working with you. But I just want to add sort of like a PS to this. If you decide that you're no longer for them, and now you're against them, or now you're actually pulling away and they know it, this is when gloves off, mask off when it comes to a covert narcissist. This is when they just absolutely go insane, removing your access, doing things. This is when you start to see a side of them where you think, oh, what happened to the nice one? Wow. they'll start sending you really nasty emails, being just absolutely horrible. And you think, wow, I didn't even know you had it in you to be like this. And all you're trying to do is actually maybe try to have a cordial end. You try to extend an olive branch. You're trying to be nice, trying to wrap things up in a good way. They will not be able to do that. I'll tell you that right now. And by this time, you will have had all the energy sucked out of you. You will be a shell of yourself having dealt with them. And you'll just be, I gotta get out of this thing. So believe me, I know. I've been there. I've been exactly where you are. And I can just tell you that the best thing for you is going to be putting those boundaries in place, not talking to anybody, not talking to any of their flying monkeys either. I mean, because they try to, put themselves in this place of a puppet master or whatever. And I can tell you that the other people around them don't see what's going on. And it's just not going to be helpful for you to try to remain in contact with them or the other people in their world. It's better for you to try to cut ties with as many people that are close to that narcissist as possible too, for your own sake, your own sanity, your own soul. Are you dealing with a covert narcissist? Covert narcissists are the absolute worst. I have dealt with them myself in my personal life, and that is why I am on this mission, on this crusade to help you guys break free from them too, because I know they get stuck in your head. They literally know how to get stuck in the recesses of your head. You become obsessed. Seriously, like you wake up in the middle of the night, you're thinking about it. You wake up in the morning, you're thinking about it. You're brushing your teeth, you're thinking about it. You seriously cannot get away from these. It's seriously like death by 1,000 cuts because they are so subtle. I've recently heard this term micro manipulation, and I love this term because this is what they do. I mean, it is so subtle that when you go to try to tell somebody about it, people think, well, that doesn't sound that bad. And there's this term called plausible deniability, and that is what they do. I mean, it's so subtle that it's really, really hard to describe what it is that they're doing. It just doesn't seem that bad because these micro manipulations are so tiny. They're literally messing with your mind a little at a time. There's this old term, Chinese water torture, which, I kind of don't love that term because I'm half Chinese and, it's not the greatest, but it's that little like drip, drip, drip on your forehead where it's just a little at a time. It's the whole death by 1,000 cuts thing. And so this is how covert narcissists literally make you crazy and drive you absolutely insane. So these micro manipulations are what they do to absolutely drive you crazy. It is a subtle form of emotional abuse that they use in their closest relationships to gain a sense of control and especially regain a sense of control if they think they're losing it. So one of the things that they will do, for example, is they'll send like a DM. It has like this shock value, like, oh, I had a biopsy today and I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And then they'll like unsend it. Oh, that wasn't meant for you. Something like that. And you'll be like, what was that? And, this massive drama bomb. And you'll go, what was that? And then they'll say, oh, sorry, that wasn't meant for you. That was for somebody else. It was so that you will go, what was that? What was that? Play on your sympathy so that you'll come back and want to know what that was and get, to get your attention. And then they'll be super secretive about it. Oh, that wasn't meant for you. Sorry. I know you don't care anymore. To try to reawaken your empathy, to see if you still care, try to get you to worry, something to that effect. So that may be one of the things that they might do. Another thing that they might do is try to get you to participate in activities that they know that you don't necessarily enjoy. This is if you're still in a relationship with them. So they will do that, but they'll make you do that, but they know that you will go along and you won't say anything because they know that you're the type of person that will go along to get along. And they might say, oh, it's just for a minute and it won't take that long and you'll be fine with it. And then after a while, it ends up being like your whole day or something like that. And an hour turns into 3 hours, and it turns into the whole day or something. And you just end up being, annoyed or whatever. But you just ended up kind of getting roped into the whole thing. And what can you really end up doing about it? But they end up just sort of roping you into that whole thing. So then it makes them sort of feel like, well, they got their way. But what can you really do? Well, they say, oh, it wasn't supposed to be that or whatever. And you end up being the bad person if you say anything about it. So that's another example. Another example would be where they say something to you or do something for you that is supposed to be nice for you that ends up not being so nice. One of the things that somebody close to me, for example, was a family member that my husband and I had in our family, and they would do something nice for you. And then as they're doing something nice for you, they would be saying something like, oh, you're going to get so spoiled because I'm doing this nice thing for you. And so, you kind of get the sense like there's like these strings attached to them doing something nice for you, so there's like this sort of manipulation around it, these strings attached to it. Or they might give like a backhanded compliment, like, you're losing so much weight. I mean, you have a ways to go, but you really look so much better than you used to, something like that. Another thing that they might do is sort of badmouth people around you, like, your friends are so great but don't really love this person. Why do you hang around people that are so not worthy of you? Something like that. You really could hang around better people. Make it seem like your friends aren't the greatest or something like that. And it's talking negatively about people in your life all the time and trying to just isolate you from your friends, that sort of thing. Another thing that they will do is kind of subtly never accept your opinions on something. They'll always sort of put you down. Well, that sounds like a good idea, but why would we do that? Or how about if we do it this way instead? And you just sort of start to realize that anytime you have given your idea or your opinion on something, they never take your idea or opinion on something. They just always sort of put it down, or they'll always sort of discount it. And you're always realizing that they always go with their idea or their opinion. And it's just always these little kinds of things. It's a micro manipulation, just these little tiny things. They're just tiny things. Like if you cleaned a room, for example, they say, yeah, you did a good job with it. But as they're kind of going behind you and continuing to fix it up or to continuing to clean it, to let you know you didn't really quite do a great job, that sort of thing. So those are the kinds of things that you see. I mean, if you want to know more about covert narcissism in relationships, I have a whole video on that. After a while, it just erodes away at your self-esteem, at who you are, and you just lose the sense of yourself. All right, so let's talk about the coverts. They're the ones that seem so nice to the rest of the world. I think they're the most dangerous ones because it's like these little teeny things. They're really under the radar that everybody else thinks they are wonderful. They're very good at having this plausible deniability. They're very good at saying things and doing things in a way that can be shifted or taken in a way that, that's not what I meant. I mean, it's almost extremely hard to describe to other people. I mean, even recently, I was at an event. I was the keynote speaker for the event, and somebody was asking me about, oh, you had to deal with a covert narcissist. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I said, yeah. And I said, I had to deal with one in business. Oh, really? What were some of the things that you had to deal with? And I said, oh, I really have a hard time describing it because when I have to describe it, it never sounds all that bad because it's the things that they do are small and they mess with your mind, and it's over time, and it's very abusive over time, and it's death by a thousand cuts, and it's psychological. So I'm going to do these things, and I want you guys to be writing things in the comments if you've seen these things. I really want to know. Okay. So here are a few. It's only because I care about you so much that I say this insert very underhanded put down statement about you. So here's an example. Only because I care about you so much that I'm concerned about how much weight you're putting on, or how much you're drinking, or how much alcohol you're consuming, or something like that, or how much of a slut you're going to look like with that red lipstick on, something like that. It's psychological a lot of times. Many times they say the statement to a third party, and sometimes they do this in advance of the discard to start seed planting so that when the discard actually happens, they've planted the seed so that they can show that third party that they were right. I'm so concerned about Susie. She's really drinking too much. She really had a lot to drink last night. I'm so concerned about her so that when the discard happens and the custody battle happens, Susie's an alcoholic. You see how that happens, but it's all under the guise of concern. And that's how the coverts come across through their very deep sense of care and concern. The other thing that they'll do, the other thing that they say is they'll say something that is very innocuous that ends up being a massive firestorm. I was in the presence of a covert narcissist who was with her stepdaughter. And she happened to say something about how she was with the husband, the father of the child. The stepdaughter was in her 20s, and she said, oh, I've been with your dad for 20 years, whatever it was. And the stepchild got very, very upset because she realized that that meant that she had been with the father before the mother and father had broken up, and was crying and upset. And the covert narcissist was, Oh, that was just a mistake. It wasn't my intention. I just said the years wrong. It wasn't my intention to upset her. Obviously, I just said the years wrong. I meant these years. Clearly, it wasn't my intention to upset her. I meant this number of years, obviously. And she obviously knew the number of years, but she had that plausible deniability. It wasn't my intention to. So that's another thing that they say. It wasn't my intention to. They know exactly what they're doing, but they say things like that. And that's why they're so difficult to pin down, because many times they seem so nice and so kind. And these are the people that are out there, that they're humanitarians, they're doing things for the world. They're oftentimes clergy or doctors, and people think, well, obviously it must have been a mistake. It was inadvertent. But you know that it's not. You know that it was absolutely not a mistake. Another thing that they do is they'll say, oh, I must have misunderstood. I said this wrongly, or I must have misunderstood. It's all gaslighting. It's meant to make you crazy, but it's not. Lots and lots of passive aggressive behavior. It's all very, very passive aggressive. Or they might say something like, oh, it must be so nice. It must be so nice to have it like this, something like that. And I do have much more on this in my video called The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, which you are certainly welcome to check out, because I had to deal with two of these in my life, one of which I've been able to cut out completely, thank God. The other one is a family member, so we've put up very, very steel boundaries as much as we can. The other thing that they do is they'll do passive aggressive things like, it's fine, it's okay, something like that. Another thing that they'll do is they'll make a comment and then they'll say, oh, I was just joking, or they'll add ha to the end of the statement, and you know that they weren't necessarily joking. By the way, if you have seen any of these things so far, give me an amen in the comments, or I would love to know what some of the examples are that you guys have seen too. I'm sure you guys have seen many of your own as well. Another one that I've seen personally is they're extremely jealous. So if something good happens to you, they just can barely bring themselves to be happy for you. So they might say, well, congratulations. So good for you. And then when you say, aren't you happy for me? They'll say, yeah, I said congratulations. And you say, well, you don't seem very happy. And you say, your tone didn't seem very happy. And then they act like you're the one who's crazy, you're reading things into it, you are reading tone. They turn it and shift it onto you, like you're the one who's absolutely insane. I said I was really happy for you. I couldn't have said it even better. I warmly congratulated you. So then you just don't even bother. And then you start, maybe you are crazy, maybe you start to feel guilty. There's all of that as well. But deep down inside that they really didn't seem all that happy for you, or maybe they do seem jealous, something like that. The other thing that they are very, very good at is they're extremely skillful at saying kind of two things at once, at being able to kind of give a compliment and a put down all at once. It's kind of crazy how good they are at sort of saying something like, your home, your brand new home is so beautiful. Oh, it's too bad it's on the water where you're going to have so many issues with mosquitoes. Or, wow, you've lost so much weight. It's too bad you're going to have so much issue with sagging skin, though, right? What a bummer about that. Something like that. Or coded language. It's so great about your promotion, but what a bummer about the amount of driving you're going to have to do, huh? I mean, just, I don't know. They're very, very good. I'm not even as good at even coming up with the examples as they are at it, because they're so good at being able to kind of give you a compliment and also a put down at the same time, and having that plausible deniability, and saying things in a way that their target knows was a put down at the same time. They'll say something, where they can actually say something to you and, oh, what was the name of that again? And that they know was, why wouldn't you remember that, kind of a thing, which was meant to be a put down to you. Or they'll bring a gift to you, and that was meant to be a message to you and to the rest of the world. Oh, that was nice, they brought a gift. And to you, that's a message. Those are the kinds of things that covert narcissists do and say. They are the worst. As many of you know, they're the ones that I disdain and detest the most in a lot of ways. But it also means that there are definitely ways that you can handle them. I've given you lots and lots of ways that you can actually work with them in a very powerful way, as far as negotiating with them as well. Definitely handle them. You can definitely negotiate with them in a powerful way. 10 power-packed phrases that can instantly unmask that covert narcissist. All right. So let's dive in, shall we? By the way, I've got a brand new book, Slay the Bully: How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win, which you should go straight to slaythebully.com and you should grab it right now, because if you do, you get early access to the entire manuscript, you get a masterclass, you get all sorts of really, really super cool things. So make sure you do that right now. All right. So number one is, I'm not having this discussion with you. I'm telling you how it is, because you know what? They bank on the fact that you're not going to snuff them out. They bank on the fact that you're not going to go direct with them. It stops them in their tracks. So if you say directly to them, I'm not having this discussion with you, I'm telling you how it is, then it establishes your assertiveness with them. And it lets the narcissist know that you won't be manipulated. And it sets this clear boundary with them. And you don't need to say it in an angry way. You don't need to say it in a way that has any tone. You don't even need to say it. You can just say it even sort of robotically. You can just make it clear that there's a new game in town, that this new game in town doesn't tolerate their attempts to control conversation. You can just say, I'm not having this discussion with you. I'm telling you how it is. Just like that. And you can just look at them like that. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is, I don't get what you're trying to say or do here. You just kind of play dumb. I don't understand what you're trying to do. I'm not sure. You act confused. And when you subtly sort of challenge the narcissist's attempts to confuse or gaslight you, it puts the focus back on their behavior to demand clarity. Instead of anger, you sort of are bewildered. I'm not sure. Can you provide clarity for me? I'm just trying to understand what it is you're trying to say. Can you give me some more clarity on that, please? When you approach it with some bewilderment or like confusion instead of anger, it sort of disarms them. So that's number two. Number 3 is, this isn't the way to talk to me or anyone else for that matter. So you are establishing that you are not going to be disrespected. And let me tell you, I always sort of give a formula for shifting the dynamic of power with narcissists. And I say that you need to think about it in terms of baby steps, because oftentimes you've been conditioned for a long time, whether it's a professional relationship or a personal relationship. A lot of times you don't feel like you can shift that dynamic of power all at once because it feels overwhelming to do it all at once. So I say step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. So step 1 is just creating those boundaries. When you first start creating those boundaries, that first boundary doesn't have to be a physical boundary. It doesn't have to be moving out of the house or getting out of a partnership. That first boundary can really just be, this isn't the way to talk to me or anyone else for that matter. You don't even have to add the or anyone else for that matter. You can just say, this isn't the way to talk to me. So by addressing their communication style and the fact that you find it disrespectful, you're reminding the covert narcissist that their behavior is not acceptable. And it also emphasizes, if you want to say, or anyone else for that matter, the importance of treating you with respect and others with respect. But if you don't even care about others at that moment, you can just say, don't treat me disrespectful. All right, so that's number 3. Number 4 is, if you're going to talk about me to anyone else, it should be in a respectful manner. And, I have a friend who's also my business coach. She's been my business coach for a very long time. And she would always say, don't leave me less in other people's listening. So when people are hearing about me, don't leave me less. They're thinking less of me when you walk away. So, this phrase draws attention to the narcissist's tendency to, try to line up flying monkeys, gossip about you, have their army of people so that you feel isolated, where they're speaking ill of you. And it encourages them to consider their words and reminds them of that importance of speaking of respect. But really, more importantly, you're calling them out. You're demasking them. You're saying, I see you. I know what you're doing. I know what you're up to. You're not fooling me. I see what you're up to. It's almost like you're shining the light. It's like that when you pull the rock off the bugs and they all go scurrying. What are you doing? Right? So it's not just the fact that you're demanding this. It's also the fact that you're shining the light on it and you're like shaming them about it. The next one is number 5, which is your behavior and words have consequences, which can be felt by others. Here you're highlighting the impact of their actions, which again sheds light on their lack of empathy. And it reminds them that their behavior not only affects themselves, but those around them. They may not care about you. They may not even care about anyone else, but maybe they'll be worried about how it's going to show up for themselves. And in that moment, they may be so proud that they'll be like, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. But even if they say that in that moment, they may be worried. You can still say it, because regardless of how they react in that moment, it still may worry them. Number 6 is, it's not okay to only think of yourself and disregard everyone else's feelings. Again, you are standing up for yourself and you are letting them know that you see what they're doing. You see that they're only thinking of themselves. And especially for a covert narcissist, they want to be seen as the humanitarians. They want to be seen as the one who thinks of everyone else. And so if you are calling them out as someone who doesn't think of everyone else, they'll be like, oh, feigning this hurt. Like, I take care of everyone. Are you kidding me? They'll be extremely hurt by that, right? So that will kick them right in the gut. And it highlights the need for empathy and consideration towards others and exposing their lack thereof. And by the way, I have phrases for disarming narcissists that you can get for free at disarmthenarc.com, which I definitely highly recommend that you do. And if you need self-care, I have a whole video on self-care for coping with narcissists, and definitely check out that video as well. The next one is, if you want something from me, tell me so plainly instead of implying it and being passive aggressive. Again, they're going to be like, I'm being passive aggressive. What, me? Are you kidding? They don't want to be seen as anything other than good and wonderful, even though they are very, very passive aggressive. By actually calling out their passive aggressive tendencies and tactics, you force them to be more direct and transparent, because they want to have sort of these clean hands all the time. They don't want to be seen as this manipulative person that they are, and it promotes their open and honest dialogue. And by the way, I have a whole video called Decoding the Top 7 Catchphrases of Narcissists, which is another great video for you to check out. So the next one is number 8, which is, what you're doing right now isn't helping us and isn't helping the relationship. So, it just sort of like brings it all back so that you can remind everyone, where are we going with this? Don't we want to get to a place where we're actually getting somewhere with this whole thing, right? Aren't we trying to resolve a conflict here? By pointing out that their behavior is detrimental to the relationship, you highlight the negative impact of their actions, and it encourages the narcissist to reflect on their behavior and their consequences. Whether they actually do or not, probably not, but at least for that moment, they get like shamed, and they're open. You open that and you unmask them for that moment. The next one is, I know who I am and what I need in a relationship, and this is not it. The more you become authentic about who you are, how strong you are, and what you want in a relationship, the more difficult it's going to be for that covert narcissist to be existing in that, because that is a narcissist kryptonite. A strong, resilient, authentic human being is not a person who a narcissist can coexist with. A narcissist, by definition, needs a person who's going to be insecure, needs a person who can be manipulated, needs a person who wants to cling to them. And that this statement, I know who I am and what I need in a relationship, asserts your self-worth, asserts your boundaries. It emphasizes you're not settling for a relationship tainted with narcissistic tendencies. It empowers you to protect yourself. So powerful. If you agree that this is so powerful, I want you to put that in the comments below right now. So powerful. The next one is, this conversation is over until we can speak respectfully without manipulation or blame shifting. By setting a firm boundary, you establish that you will not engage in unhealthy conversations. This phrase demands that you demand mutual respect and honesty while exposing that covert narcs manipulation tactics. So good. Conversation's over until we can speak respectfully without manipulation and without blame shifting. And by the way, if you need additional support, please join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung, because get the help and support that you need. And if you need therapy, betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung. Again, get the help and support that you need. We receive commissions. It doesn't cost you any extra. There you have it, folks. Those are the 10 power-packed phrases that will help you when dealing with and confronting a covert narcissist. When you are dealing with a covert narcissist, you should run quietly. You're dealing with a counterfeit relationship. I know it is a nightmare. I have been exactly where you are. I know that. I still remember that pit in my stomach, that tightness in my chest, that half nauseous feeling, that feeling like you want to just, you want air. You feel like you can't breathe, that rumination in your mind all the time. I know exactly what you're dealing with. And a covert narcissist is different than an overt narcissist. The overt narcissist goes around telling everybody how wonderful they are all the time. They're the ones that you think of when you think of a narcissist. They're the ones that are demanding how, all the space in the room. You know when they've entered the room, they want the attention. The covert narcissist says, "Oh no, I don't want attention. It's okay. Everyone else can have the attention." And that's why people don't necessarily think that they're narcissists. They oftentimes act like the victim. They're much more passive aggressive than the overt narcissist. Many people think that they're wonderful. Many people think that they're charming. Most people think that they're the most incredible people on the planet. And that's why you, who are their target, end up feeling very, very victimized, because you don't want to come back out and tell people what you're dealing with, because the things that they do are so small and so subtle that when you go and tell people about it, people go, "What are you complaining about? That's really not so bad." It's just the little things add up over time. It's very much of a mind game. It's a constant mind game. So it's constant manipulation, passive aggressive, playing the victim, and it's little tweaks, little tweaks. It's that little kind of tiny, tiny, tiny things. And so, you kind of have to trust your gut. You notice things over time. You go, "You know what, that doesn't seem right. What's going on with that?" They're so small that you think, "Should I speak up about that? Well, if I speak up about that, maybe I'm going to be perceived as being sort of nagging, or if I speak up about that, maybe people will think that I'm being overzealous, or maybe I'm bullying this person who seems so victimized or seems so downtrodden." But you have to go with your gut on this, and you have to take care of yourself. And you're not responsible for another person. And it is so important for you to trust your gut on this and know what is best for yourself. And no one else is living your life, only you. And boy, does your life go by so fast. I mean, I just recently saw a picture of myself and I was like, wow, that was already 7 years ago. I can't believe how fast 7 years went by. So life goes by so fast. It's like in an instant. And so you cannot worry about what anyone else is going to think or what anyone else is doing. Only you. And people who are your true friends or your true supporters will support you. And you have to know that you are in integrity for yourself and doing what's right for your heart, yourself. And if you can do things that are in integrity at the highest level and for yourself at the highest level, then you just know that that's what you have to do. So if you make that choice that is for you at the highest level, then that's what you need to do. And just, okay, say to this person, this relationship is not serving me. I want to preserve you. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing, it minimizes potential harm to that person, minimizes potential retaliation if possible, because they are going to want to retaliate. However you try to handle it, they will take it personally, whatever you try to do, because you are a source of supply for them. And they don't want to see their source of supply go out the door, go out the window. And they're going to be worried that you are going to be exposing them to somebody. So no matter how you try to play it, no matter how nice you want it to be, I know for me, I was in a business partnership with a covert narcissist, and I tried very, very hard to have the situation be as amicable as possible. And I've been in a couple of situations with these covert narcissists. And even when they wrong you over and over and over again, as much as you try to keep it smooth, as much as you try to, it's almost like the harder you try to keep it smooth, the worse it is. So you just have to know and trust your gut that the most you can do is stick to your guns, create boundaries, know that the cream always rises to the top. And if you are, staying at the highest level of integrity and knowing that you're making the best decisions that you can for you at the time and not doing anything wrong on your part and handling yourself with grace, with positivity, and not smearing the other person to the best of your ability, to the best that you can, without trying to retaliate, but also not being a doormat and just saying, this isn't serving me, but I certainly, wish you well. Don't say anything about them, just saying, I'm choosing to take a different direction, depending on whatever it is that your situation is, not knowing if it's going to be a business situation or a personal situation. You want to discuss strategies for detaching, disengaging, emotionally preparing yourself for, being in different directions, almost putting an invisible shield around yourself because they're going to hurl things at you. And you just almost have to just kind of let it go by you, let it whiz by you, start being able to say things like, that's very interesting feedback. Oh, I hear what you're saying. I get that. I get that that's what you think. I agree that that's what you think. Just start to say things like that, that just is detaching yourself from the situation where you're just taking a look at them, but you are not engaging. You are not getting involved. You are staying here, you're up here, and they're down here. Definitely as little contact as possible, establishing boundaries. And really, I would take the step of no contact with anybody that they're in contact with, too. That is what I did. I cut off everything as far as even social media. I stopped being in contact or relationship with anybody because I just wanted to cut the cord vibrationally with people who were involved with this person because you just don't want that energy, you don't want that power to be sucked from you. You want to be in high vibrational energy and you want to be able to protect yourself from further manipulation. You want to be able to protect yourself from further emotional harm, from further emotional abuse, from that suck, that energy suck, that feeling, that energy vampire suck that comes from being in that space of a covert narcissist space. And that's what happens when you're in there. And if you want more phrases for disarming narcissists, get my phrases for disarming narcissists at disarmthenarc.com. By the way, disarmthenarc.com. And if you need more support, make sure you join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. And when you're going to heal and move forward, remember it is difficult to recover and heal from being in this sort of counterfeit relationship. So be gentle with yourself. Understand that self-care is going to be ultimate in dealing with that. And I have a whole video on self-care when recovering from narcissists and coping with narcissists. So check out that video. And the impact of having to deal with that, it takes some time to recover from that. It does. You might need therapy when you are dealing with that. So get a good therapist. If you don't have a good therapist, if you don't have access to a good therapist, we have a partnership with BetterHelp. You can go to betterhelp.com /Rebecca Zung to access that. We receive small commissions on that. It doesn't cost you one single penny extra. We just want you to have access to relationships that you can trust. So coping strategies such as breathing techniques, going to yoga, walking around the block, having some friends that you can rely on, all of those things are really, really important. Monitoring your thoughts, really, really important. I always say I never leave my thoughts unsupervised. So listening to good podcasts, listening to good audiobooks, making sure that you are doing your gratitude journals, pivoting your thoughts every single morning, doing things that are going to rebuild your self-esteem, rebuild your self-confidence, make you feel like you can be assertive again, and fostering healthy relationships going forward, making you feel like you are worthy of having healthy relationships going forward. So really, really important. Practice self-compassion, because it's okay, that it may take a little time to move forward. That is completely normal. That is how you can unmask the narcissist and run, but quietly, in dealing with covert narcissists.